Okay, good morning. This is the first official meeting of the Oversight Committee. And there are four of us present, one by Skype, and I'm assuming Maya is on the way. But so we will do roll call. As you know, we're just starting, so we don't have a chairperson. That's one of the things that's on the agenda, to elect the chairperson. So I'll just do the roll call. Barry Ian. Barry's here. Kimberly Shaw.
Here.
Al Longo.
Here.
Okay. And Mike Rush is here. And we're waiting on one more member. He should be en route. But we will get started. What we'd like to do, first of all, I did do a disclaimer, by the way, because we don't have a chairperson, but I took it upon myself to just get us going, put an agenda together. This is the same agenda that I sent out for our meeting that was supposed to be Monday. So we're going to talk about these things, and we have a mission statement. I'm going to ask Al to go over the mission statement because he, along with our discussions, there he is. Okay, this is our last member of the committee, and I'll just have them introduce themselves so we know who's who before we go any further.
I'm Kimberly Shaw.
And your position, Kim?
I'm the president of the Lakewood Education Association. Excuse me.
Okay. Al?
Al Longo, I'm a professor at Ocean County College and a consultant for the New Jersey Principals and Supervisors Association.
I'm Dr. Michael Rush, president of Omega 13, vice president of the Lakewood NAACP.
Barry Iron, President of the Board of Education, Lakewood Township.
Mayor Caston, Executive Director of Base Road Commons.
Okay?
Sorry, would you repeat the name?
Mayor Caston.
Al, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, thank you. There's a little bit of noise, but we'll try to work through it. The first thing we need to do is elect officers, and I did do a disclaimer, and I let the board know, and the public, whoever read it, that I was not the chairperson, and but I just took advantage of making sure that we got started and putting the agenda together in hopes of getting things going. Okay? So what we'll do now, since we don't have a chairperson, I'll just act until we get going. And now we need nominations for a person to chair the committee. Any nominations?
I make the nomination that Mike Rush is the chairperson.
I second that.
Okay, the nomination was made, and I did do a disclaimer that I would only do it if nobody else wanted to, so I assumed that nobody else really wanted it, but Al, did you hear the nominations?
I heard the nominations and I concur.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Aye, okay. All right, so I'm the chair. Now we need nominations for a secretary, somebody to take the notes and to correspond with me and whatever else we need to make sure things happen appropriately.
I nominate Mr. Shaw.
Okay, Mr. Shaw was nominated secretary. Any second?
I'll second.
I second.
Okay, we have your first second, Maya second. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm in favor.
Opposed?
Yes.
No opposed. So
You
now
said
we have a chairperson, which is myself, Mike Rush, and we have a secretary, which is Kimberly Shaw. And I'll just say that I won't say if I'm happy or not, but I think we got a decent committee of 5 people who will work together in an effort to make sure that we do the right job by the State Department and by the Lakewood schools. Just to let you know, for those of you who may not know, this is an oversight committee for the non-public schools. So any questions related to public schools, go to the regular transportation, and but non-public schools, you can ask us, but remember, we're the oversight committee. Also, I took it upon myself to ask Mr. Kravitz, his name is? Kravitz, to join us around 12 o'clock to give an update. Because we, the committee, would like to know exactly what's going on. So he will be here around 12 o'clock to give a verbal update of where we're going, and we'll go from there. Right now, we said adoption of the mission statement and purpose. Al, would you read your mission statement, please? Read the mission statement that we all put together with your assistance.
Yes, the mission of the Oversight Committee of the LSTA is to monitor the operations of the LSTA to assure financial accountability, the safe and effective transportation of the non-public school children of Lakewood, and adherence to the provisions of the legislation that created the authority.
Okay, board members? Any questions, concerns regarding the mission statement?
No.
No, okay, so we will officially adopt. All in favor of the mission statement, please let it be known by raising your hands. Any opposed? Seeing none, then we have an adopted mission statement that will, as soon as we figure out how to get letterhead or whatever, we'll put that on a letterhead. Our goal is not to spend money, because that's not our job. That's the 17 million or whatever it is, that's strictly for kids. So that's not our goal at all. But we've found some way through the school system to do whatever we need to do to make things happen. Okay, so we'll have copies at our next meeting of the mission.
If he shuts off his, Al, can you shut off your mic by your computer?
Okay, can you hear us, Al?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Okay, so we've adopted the mission statement. The purpose is basically in the mission statement. Okay, we said mission statement and purpose, but the purpose of what we're doing here is in the mission statement, and I concur. Board members, do we concur that the purpose is already there?
Yes.
Now what we're gonna do, we can discuss goals and objectives based on our mission, and we cannot adopt them today, but we're gonna talk about the goals and objectives and see what we want. So committee members, can we just discuss the kinds of goals and objectives that we like to have for the Oversight Committee?
I'll speak first. I find it difficult to even lay those out until we have a framework of information. And I'm asking for, before we set up our goals and objectives, if the mission statement lays those out pretty well, at least in a broad sense, that we have a chronology from the passage of the legislation to today of what's happened in a macro form. And then beyond that, we need micro data in terms of bidding, hiring of personnel, effectiveness of the routes, number of students transported, number of students not transported, parents receiving aid in lieu of transportation, etc. So I find it difficult to lay out goals and objectives that aren't broad at this time until we have more data.
Okay, other committee members? Comments, concerns?
I agree that we need more data. I think we should lay out the groundwork of how we're gonna get that data. Whether it's Mr. Kravitz coming testifying, whether we need to see monthly bank statements, whether we need to wait for the quarterly audited report of his I don't know if he does it quarterly. I don't know when his accountant actually looks over and prints out, an audited report of what he has seen. How many bank accounts do they have? Is anyone else getting funds from it So we should lay out the groundwork of what information we would like to get from them.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that we need a full financial report. That's one of the things we need, isn't that, committee, is that what we're saying?
Yes.
Mike, I would add a procedural component to that. How did this all evolve? Legislation was passed, people were hired, buses hit the road, bids were solicited, et cetera.
All right,
What procedures were followed? Who followed them? I mean, we have an entity by legislation, but there has to be human intervention rather, between the passage and what's happening today. I also want to recommend that rather than calling the director, Mr. Bernard, in it, I think he should sit at the table, a la the superintendent of schools does, for all our meetings, so he can answer questions immediately, as opposed to having people wait for him to come in. I think that would be in the best interest of the consortium and in the best interest of the oversight committee.
comments?
So I just want to add procedure to your financial.
Right, I did write procedure, updated procedures and where we started, where we are now, and where we're going. Okay, so that'll be a part of the, what we will ask for. What we can do, when the director comes in at 12 o'clock oh, he's here, there he is. Yeah, how are you? Okay, we can, even though we're gonna ask for a written report, we're gonna ask the director if he would just bring us up to date where we are, how it started, as much information. I did speak to him, and he said certainly whatever, he's open book, and whatever we need to make this happen, you know, he will do whatever he has to do. So I did ask him to come today, and we can ask questions, he will give us an update. So what we can do, I suggest that we just go on and have him give us an update, and then we'll also ask for a written documented report of procedures and a full financial report. One of the things that was mentioned, I know that the Oversight Committee is responsible for making sure the monies will go where they're supposed to. And so one of the concerns is making sure that aid in lieu of transportation. You know, if you got a family of 4, and that's multiplied by whatever the money is, 884 times 4, you know, has that money gone to the families or what's going on? You know, because I had a situation where one of my neighbors contacted me and then asked about transportation. I understand that's being worked out. But that's not just that neighbor, any kid, non-publics, Catholic schools, Jewish schools, wherever, we gotta make sure that they have the proper transportation. Okay, so committee, if you don't mind, I'm gonna ask the director, pronounce your name again, I'm trying.
Avraham Kravitz.
Kravitz? Okay, if I forget it, just forgive me, all right?
Avraham.
Avraham.
Yeah.
Okay, that's, Kravitz is easier, but I'll do the best I can. Okay, so committee, I'm gonna ask him to come up, if you don't mind, to give us an update, and then we can ask questions, and we go from there.
Okay. Would you like me to stand over here or
Where
in
you-
front? In the front. I'll stand there. I'll pull it over.
Yeah, you can,
Put it here. Good late morning, early afternoon, everybody. How are you today?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Avram Kravitz. I'm the director of the LSTA. The LSTA was founded or brought forth from the bill that was signed earlier in the year or late summer. And the idea was that for fiscal or financial reasons, the courtesy kids were going to be cut from the getting picked up. I believe when the bill started, or when the bill was being put together, the numbers that were thought about was about 7,000 courtesy kids. There's about 9,300 courtesy kids that are in the system presently. And there's about 21,000 mandated kids that are in the system. The bill was signed on August 9th. It took a little bit of time till everybody figured out what exactly the bill, what the intent or what the understanding of the bill was. After that, the schools got together as per the bill and formed a consortium. The consortium held an election for a board, and then the board ultimately runs the LSTA, hired me, and we worked together to form the team that runs the LSTA. Our job is, for all intents and purposes, we have become the Board of Ed Transportation Department for private schools. We have Jewish schools as well as a few non-Jewish schools. And our responsibilities are to bid out the routes, ensure that the routes are not exceeding the allotted funds of $884 per kid. That's the threshold. Contract and get the routes on the road, work with the vendors, as well day-to-day operations of the system. In other words, people with 30,000 kids, people move all the time, and they have to be changed onto buses and the like. We first got access to the mapping system as of last Thursday. Until now, it was being run by a BOE consultant, and we have gone through training. We are now, as of last Thursday, self-sufficient, and we are able to do those changes and things of that nature. In regards to a child that doesn't get busing, every mandated student that does not receive busing is entitled to $884, $442 each way, and it's typically given in two checks, one at the end of January and one towards the end of the year. Now, the way that you can receive this compensation or fulfill the aid in lieu request, it's called a B7T. The B7T is the aid in lieu form. Just to put the B6T is the form that the children fill out to actually get transportation, or if they move, they have to send in a B6T form with a proof of identification. So when you fill out a B7T form, it's sent into the entity. In our case, it's the LSTA. You need to take each form, go into the mapping system, see that the kids are mandated, see when their AM buses started. In this case, as we had a slow liftoff, where not all the routes started on September 7th. Just this week, there were 4 routes, as I mentioned earlier. There were 4 routes that started actually just this week that we were able to get bus companies to take. So for any mandated kid, say if his route starts on Monday, there's X amount of days that he didn't get service. So you would add up the amount of the 442 divided, let's say for the AM route, divided by the days that he didn't have service, and each day is worth $2.37, depends on the route, depends on the numbers, and you just times it by those days. So we're presently in our office, we have about 1,200, 1,300 of the actual B70 forms in. We are processing it, we are calculating how much they owe, and we hope, seems to be the typical, that at the end of January, early February, the first checks actually go out. We have about, to our numbers, we have about, at this point, between 94 and 95% of all the kids in Lakewood that are bused. There's about 1,500 two-way rides that aren't fulfilled at this point, meaning it's more than 1,500 kids, because some kids have AM, some kids only have PMs. But if you would take, the AM and PM seats, that's 60,000 seats, we're missing 1,500 both ways. A total of 3,000 seats or 50 are missing, 1,500 each way. And we day to day we work on getting more kids on buses. We were able to get 2 companies that had previously left Lakewood to come back into our area, which is really helping out the situation. Durham, which had left Lakewood, and Vanvis, which had left Lakewood as well, are now servicing our routes for our children, and we're in contact with them to pick up more routes. The answer to the dilemma of how we're going to get every single kid on a bus, and that's ultimately what the goal of this is. The goal is to get every kid with a safe means and a safe way to get to school, is to ultimately increase the supply in Lakewood. An added challenge that we had this year was that as the bill was signed late, and there's a little, if it was going to happen or not, the vendors rightfully got nervous, and they don't want to have their buses sitting empty in their yards, and they farmed out buses to different areas, whether it's Freehold or Brick or Monmouth or Manalapan, which tentatively they're pledging to bring back to Lakewood for this year, as there was an unsurety or unknown if there was going to be busing in Lakewood, and that's how it's been for the last couple of years. The goal of this project, or this bill, the goal is to bring a sense of stability to the parents of Lakewood, that there's not going to be a question, God willing, every single year if there's busing or not. Where the parents, our dream and our goal is that when the parents go away for summer vacation, they will have their bus passes for next year. And on day one, we can hit the ground, running. So the effort to do that is we've already commenced collecting the B60s for next year. We then will have to input that into the system, and then we can start mapping and ultimately routing and ultimately going to early bidding. One delay that has previously been a delay, which I'm pushing very hard the schools, was that not all the schools have their all their kids in so early in the year. The high schools, let's say, letting kids later. We're working with them that they should try to do it earlier, so that we're able to map earlier. And my thought is that instead of waiting till 100% of the kids are accounted for, meaning we know which schools there are, and then start, we can have about 90% of the kids or 95% of the kids ready to go now, so that when we get the end of that 5% of the kids who are either late transfers or they get into schools later in the year that weren't accepted yet, that ultimately we could input that in the system and be able to hit the ground running when that happens. So that's basically where we're holding today. And if any questions, that's what I'm here for. And I'm sorry. What we'd like to do them early May. That's our dream. We'd like to get it done early May, to be able to go out to bid early May. And just to illustrate some of a difficulty, we've had, I believe, this year 17 bids. That's how long the process takes. The first bid was basically a day before, 2 days before school started for this year. And ultimately, we'd like to do it in 5 or 6 bids. We can't do it in 1 or 2, it's too much, and the vendors can't even turn around and handle them. Just to put some items out there, the typical bus in Lakewood, our private school system is very unique. It's different than, from what I understand, anywhere else, because the sheer amount of kids and the amount of moves and the movement that happens day to day is a lot. So your typical bus starts off and does a boys' high school at 7:30 in the morning, drop off. Then they do a boys' elementary at 8:30 in the morning. And then they would do a girls' elementary at 9:15 in the morning. Now what the vendors do is, they know all the schools that are out there, and they know where the schools are located, and they try to put their buses in a rotation that they're in the same geographical area, that ultimately they could fulfill those 3 routes. And the same things for dismissals. There's a 3:45 dismissal. Obviously, it depends on the age, primary or above. There's a 4 and a 4:45. So the dismissals, the openings and the openings and closing are tiered in order to try to be able to get the vendors to service as most kids as possible.
When you're saying you have multiple bids, does that mean that all the schools will be in the pot, and then it will just take 5 bids for them to go through the entire pot? Or that means you're gonna select, these 20 schools go first, next 20 schools, will be staggered over how many schools are in the pot
So-
during the bidding?
For this year, being that there were 17 bids spaced out over 6 or 7 or 8 weeks, so then the school that was bid in bid number 16 was obviously as a disadvantage for the school that was bid in 1 or 2. When we say we're going to do 5 bids, if you do them within 10 days from each other and you do them before school starts, it's early enough in the year for the vendors to be able to work out all the contingencies that they have to work out. I believe our liftoff this year, due to the date in the calendar and due to just running a new entity, didn't allow us to do certain things that we'd like to do in an absolute in a regular year, which would ultimately give everybody the same shot and give everybody the same ability to get bid. Just a standpoint that I've heard from the vendors, which before I say, I'll preface that the LSTA cannot force a vendor to take any bus. The LSTA cannot force vendors to pick up certain schools. One of the challenges that a smaller school has, and has been this way since the beginning of time, is that a smaller school geographically is spaced over the 26 square miles in Lakewood. And some of those routes will take an hour and a half. And based on our tiers, the typical route shouldn't take more than 45 minutes to get from the tiers of 45 minutes to get from place to place, from school to school. So those routes seemingly are at a disadvantage because a vendor could do 2 of those routes in the same times that could as it would do one of the smaller schools. So there are discussions on the table of possibly combining schools. Schools that are near each other that we could combine, and that would take care of some of that issue, as well. Again, as well as bringing up the supply in Lakewood. If a vendor has to choose between keeping his bus sitting empty in his parking lot, or even taking a longer route that may take 2 tiers as long, he's still going to take the longer route. And this year, again, being 40 buses short, automatically, or up to 50 buses short, that's the complication that some of the routes weren't picked up because of the length of those routes and because of how long they take. Hi.
Question I have is in the description you made of the small schools, some of which may be, for my word, remote, and take double the time in which the bus company must get to and from that location. Is the cost of that less or more than the $884?
No routes could be more than $884.
So even then,
They're not allowed to. You can't go above the threshold. That means when we bid, certain routes actually came up above threshold. We have to throw that back into the next bid because you can't go above the state allotted threshold. The vendors, that's one of the reasons why the vendors say we're not so excited to take those routes because they cost us twice. Right. Hi.
From what you've said, I come to understand the multiple openings and closings are a thing of the past now. You have one per school, one opening, one closing?
No, they're still there. It's something that ultimately we have to work on. In order to service all the kids, some schools have presently 20-minute differentials in their departure times. And the problem with that is, it's a simple supply issue. There's not enough supply to service a school every 20 minutes that needs a route. Whereas if we could combine some of those departures to be at the same time, so we'll be able to we don't need as many buses. We need an extra bus for each departure. And that's something that we have to work on to cause efficiencies in the system. And I just said efficiencies. Something else I want to bring up, and I'm sorry, I know you have more questions.
Yes, there's a follow-up on that. Commingling, I think I just heard you say that you might have a route in a geographic area that would take into account multiple schools on that route?
Correct, yes. Yes, that's something that we're going to try to do.
Okay, that's not happening now, but.
It is not
it's
happening
in the
now.
plan?
We did actually, we were able to get two schools. There are some schools that are in the same building, so that's obvious. That's been done, and that we do, commingle together. But we did actually, right, towards the end, we did actually get 3 schools to combine, but they weren't picked up due to really due to the lateness of the year. But that's an idea that has to grow in order to cause efficiencies. Just something else to cause efficiencies. As we received training on the mapping, in the system now there's 5,100 house stops. Not all of them, not nearly all of them are being used. That means over the years we've added 5,100 house stops, and frankly that's too many stops. We have already consolidated many areas. Some have to be looked at, and some are possibly too far, and we have to look at them. But the way this is going to stay viable is we have to have safe, consolidated stops, and be able to run our systems more efficiently. If a bus is going down a block and has to make 3 stops, as opposed to going 1 stop, just the time by closing and opening that door and stopping is ultimately what adds on times, what adds on times to the routes. So we're trying to really create these efficiencies that will ultimately be more economical and make us work better.
I just want to clarify for my own edification. My name is Mike McLaughlin. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
If I understand correctly what you're saying, that in order, since effectively you actually work and report to the taxpayers who are giving you the dollars,
Correct.
that in order to maintain and operate, which seems to be one of your goals, the most efficient possible system for busing children back and forth to the schools, that you will be able to, and I'm using this term, mandate to the schools, in order to be efficient, in order for us to run this in the most efficient way, you must change your times, you must do this, and you must do that. Am I understanding that correctly?
So to answer your question, I can't force a school to do anything, but I could strongly suggest that the school do it in order to as a community, be able to get all the kids on busing. But really, more importantly than the departure times, which is important, is really the supply and demand issue. That's really what it is. The combination of 40 to 50 buses less, plus certain bus companies that have left the area that we've gotten back, that will answer a lot of the issues. But I agree, it's something that I will stress very strongly, that we join up some of these departure times. Again, we're not going to ask a school who has an hour and a half difference to combine to 45 minutes. But if some of the schools are 30 minutes or 40 minutes, logically it would make sense to meet somewhere in the middle and be able to have these efficiencies.
So just one more follow-up, if I may. The $884, are you finding there are schools that don't cost that much?
We are finding some schools don't cost that much, some schools do cost that much. And the overall system, that's the give and take. Most throughout Jersey, and especially in Lakewood, there's a severe driver shortage. You can't find drivers. The reason why you can't find drivers is the vendors say, and take that for what it's worth, but I've heard that I've in my travels to try to get more companies to come back into Lakewood, I've been to different areas and different districts, and many people say that the reason why there is a driver shortage is because the 884 is not enough money to pay for the vendor to pay for his bus, his insurance, and give the drivers a livable wage, and ultimately that seems to be impacting, part of the driver shortage. One of our vendors has about 20 buses sitting empty because he can't find drivers. And if I had those 20 buses, every kid would be on the road. But that's just one of the complications that we're having. We have tried to make some community moves to promote the concept of driving and things of that nature to help us out. Go ahead.
My name is Tom Gaddy, and first I want to thank everybody here for doing what you're doing, and I hope he's getting paid. It's going to be an arduous process.
I thought we were getting paid.
Did I let that cat out of the bag? I'm sorry. I think, first of all, I just want to say that I've run 2 corporations in my life that were very successful, and I think it's really unfair to these people whether it's a fault of 40 or Zara, that they have to have this meeting and they themselves have to put their mission statement and their goals together, because in my entire life, I've never created a committee that I didn't give what they had to do first to them. So the fact that you're doing this now almost seems ridiculous. The other thing is, you've described what's already happened, and it seems like you are well on your way to finishing this year, and this oversight committee is just being formed now. Do you feel that it's something unusual that the consortium's been running for 6 months and really seems like they finished what they tried to do, and they're first putting the people that are supposed to oversee it together 6 months? Doesn't it seem logical that this group should have been formed months before the consortium was formed?
So to answer your question, I have no issue with that. It seems very sensical. I agree. I think that again, it's due to the nature, the lateness of the bill, and just getting this operation off the road that is the delay. But from my end, you have my commitment. You know, I'm glad that you're here, and anything that you ever need, please. I'm very responsive, and we'll give you whatever's requested or whatever you need. And the goal is, everyone's goal here is to get the kids to school in the safest, most efficient manner, to respect the funding that we're getting and things of that nature. But I have no issue with what you said.
Well, I just want to know. My question is, how is this oversight committee going to have any impact on what you've done for the last 6 months?
Well, so our guiding principle for now is that we've been running. Basically, the state monitors have been serving as our oversight up to this point. There are protocols and how you bid and what you bid and those types of things. Every one of those
But did the monitor have any rules to go by?
Sure, he has. There's all this. These are state rules that you have to do. You can't go over the $884 threshold. You have to give public notice for bids. All those things were done, and we were in touch with him about what you could do and what you can't do. So, but he's more than willing that, or he's excited actually that the oversight committee's here, because he has a whole school system to be the monitor over.
But there's still a disconnect, because you're saying that he had rules to go by. They're saying that they had no charge and no function as to what they were supposed to be doing, but yet you're saying that the monitor had rules that he was going by. Why didn't he share them with the oversight committee? And why didn't Glenn Forney give them what they were supposed to do?
I can't answer that question, but I
Okay, and I have one last question. I'm just curious out of my own application. You were selected. Do you have any specific qualifications to be doing what you're doing?
So you have to ask the people that hired me why I was selected. But,
Okay.
but at this point, not to sound haughty, God forbid, but my qualifications are that we've gotten 95% of the kids on the road. I believe there is a state report somewhere, I don't have it, that predicted we wouldn't get more than 50 or 60% of the kids on the road at this point. I don't have it, I didn't see it. I'm just you'd have to ask the people that hired me. But my qualifications is that I'm able to run systems and try to implement and implement change. And clearly, at this point of the year, it's not me, it's the team of people that are there are working to getting this off the ground. We see for next year, for the future, with an increase of vendors and with an increase of efficiencies, to ultimately run it even better, and to be able to bring the cost down, and to be able to possibly get those changes, in the departure times, to make efficiencies and things of that nature.
Will we have with the information that I think this group of people have asked, as far as financial bids, everything, will that be made public? Will we have access to see that?
I'm going to give it to them, and everything you give to them is made public.
And what happens if they find inconsistencies now with things that have already been done? How do they go back and change that because they've not been in effect?
So the answer is that would be part of part of your procedures of what we do.
What we're going to do?
I'm certainly not disagreeing with you, because again, when we were asked to form, and I spoke to Glenn Forney and Mike Kazera, we asked some of the same questions, and then why is it that we
Need to put out goals and objectives. We need to do the mission statement and the purpose.
It's unconscionable that you
And
have to do
we
it.
hadn't heard of it before, but we had a choice, because I could have said, no, I don't want to do that. And I think anybody up here could have said that we don't want to do this, but I think the point is that You know, everybody in this room is concerned, or should be concerned about kids' safety, no matter who they are. So if we have to be late in getting things going, this is why we are asking for catch-up. You know, and we need to know the full financial report that we're gonna ask for in writing, and we're gonna discuss it at a meeting, and everybody would have it, almost like the Board of Education. You see the budget, and then you can ask all the questions, because we have questions in terms of staffing, how many staffers, what are you paying the staff, you know, where the money is going, and our goal is to make sure, part of our mission statement is to make sure the monies are going where they're supposed to go appropriately. So we're gonna do that, but we asked the director to come today to give us a verbal, you know, and I just spoke to him this morning, because I'm figuring out, well, now what do we do now? So I called him this morning, and he's here, so we appreciate that. But I think as we travel down the road, we're gonna have to be more involved in oversight, making sure that the money goes, and now Barry being the Board of Education president, and he's here, so he's serving a dual role, which is a good thing, okay? But my question to you, and I'm glad Dave is here, how is the money dispersed? Do you go through the Lakewood Board of Education, does it come straight from the state?
It goes from the state to the Board of Ed and then to us.
Okay, it goes from the state, Board of Ed, okay, because, again, as you're saying, see, we don't know any of this.
Right.
Okay, and we probably should have had training, but again, that's water under the bridge.
If I can
Sure.
add something, and at the same time, I'm gonna ask a question, and you confirm if we're right or wrong. As Abraham said, that because bill was signed so late, end of the August, we had to change contract, we had to change bidding. That brought price high, bid with the vendors, because they already signed new contracts with another districts. They cannot wait for Lakewood to wake up and say, right, now we're ready to work. So they had to plan their own business. Usually we start bidding in May, that's why I asked Abraham, what means early bidding, and I'm glad he said early May. That would help lower the prices, but like gentleman said, that it's tax money, we want to save money. And we want, oversight committee goal is to make this business, as I might say, successful. It's not try to make sure money been spent right, because we are gonna be on top of the things, but make sure every child has transportation, make sure every child has safe transportation, and the same, we not allow vendors to bid money that doesn't cost money. I wanna save money for LST. I wanna spend as less as possible. Early bidding will give, but this 6 months, not only was a training, we put Gus to work with Abraham to make this happen. It was many difficult things that they have to go over to make this thing successful.
I understand that,
And I hear what you say.
I was at the meeting with Senator Singer when the Senior Action Group, actually, we were the ones that suggested, and really strongly suggested, that there be an oversight committee put in place.
Right.
And one of the people that were there already knew what the bids were, and one of the monitors that were there, one of the state monitors, he didn't even know.
Right.
So there had to be a lot of conversation about this whole consortium, even before it was officially put into effect. Okay, now, my point is, I don't know how the consortium was even formed. I don't know how these people were selected. I don't know whether they had any qualifications. I don't know if they were vetted properly. I really don't know that. But from what I've been told, already now, the consortium has come to the township asking for more money. Okay, now that's my tax money. And I know that part of that my tax money goes to creating the Board of Education budget. And now the township is gonna give the consortium additional dollars, whether, I don't know, it's 1.6 or 2.2, then it keeps on fluctuating. So somewhere along the line, the oversight committee should have been formed before that, because I agree with you that the oversight committee should be part of trying to make this successful, but the oversight committee should have been part of watching how the money was spent.
Right.
And apparently, now, I don't know whether it's...
I agree with you, but originally, Mr. Fernie put Michael Azara in charge of oversight all this business in the beginning. And we tried to put everything together in a very short period of time. It was very difficult. So I'm glad they already covered 95%, and I'm glad the Board of Education solved some problems for LSTA to give own buses and make revenue for the district. It's a win-win situation because we're bringing back money that we spent for 30 buses. So it's a good thing.
Now, and I understand that, but now I ask you one last final question. Did Mike Azara, you keep on saying that Mike Azara has this authority. Did he have any authority over who was considered to be on the consortium?
That is up to Abraham to answer.
How the consortium was formed?
Well,
Yeah, because it's a private entity.
No, I understand that, but you're saying that Mike has some authority.
LSC, no, Mike,
Let me just, excuse me, now let's do this. Okay, this is our official first meeting, so there are a lot of kinks. And the fact that we're 6 months into this, and we, the committee, and Barry probably knows more than the rest of us because of his position as board president. But the committee doesn't know anything about, other than rules and regulations. I mean, I know rules and regulations, but in terms of the oversight committee, in terms of the consortium, yes, that's one of the procedures I think Al mentioned that we want to know. So we're going to ask for these things in writing. You know, how was this? How did this happen? How was this formed? How were the people selected? You know, same like people will ask, well, how were these people selected for the oversight committee? That's a good question again, that somebody may want to know the answer. But the consortium, those who are responsible for spending money, we need to know who's on the committee, what their roles are on the committee. So we're going to ask those questions as a committee, and hopefully we can catch up and say, wow, while they're asking for $1.6 million from the township already, and you had money to do what you had to do. So that's confusing to us too. And I think that's what Al was saying when he said, well, we need to back up. Before goals and objectives, we need to back up. So we need to know what has taken place from September, or when the bill was signed in August, to now. And hopefully that stuff is in writing so we can see. So we're going to be asking for all those things. And just make sure, I mean, the word oversight, that's exactly what it is.
and I'm,
Sure.
and another thing, which, I'm sorry.
I would like to ask Abraham, things. First of all, Abraham, I recognize your efforts. You were given a very difficult charge, and you're doing the best that you can, and I recognize that. I think in terms of the closing times and consolidations, you have more power than you are alluding to. You set the schedule within reason. We're certainly not going to have children going to school at 12 o'clock, but around the state of New Jersey with non-public transportation, schools often have to change their schedule or have staff there to monitor the children because the bus arrives early. It is the responsibility of the school. So you have the authority to dictate to a degree the routes and the times within reason. Second, have you reviewed the guidelines for non-public school transportation of the state of New Jersey?
Yes.
That would be very helpful and could be cost-saving.
Yes, I
And
have.
thirdly, are all the schools receiving Orthodox and transportation? Are they registered with NJDOE as schools?
Yes, you cannot get transportation. You can't get a building anchor in the system unless you're actually a recognized school. You know, I had a school that.
I understand that. Do we have a list that cross-references the schools receiving transportation and the NJDO list of registered schools?
So.
Do we have that list?
So for this year, we do have such a list, but for this year, the actual routes were done by a consultant from the Board of Ed using the Board of Ed system. So all those schools are actually are registered.
As you well know, schools pop up all during the school year, many of them small, as people have alluded to, and we want to make sure that that transportation aid, which is given to parents indirectly, are for children attending schools registered with NJDOE. And we want to see the cross-reference list.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, wait just a moment. Barry, you were going to make a comment?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Question, I see on, for the school district, we have information, but we don't, where do you maintain offices?
On 475, Oberlin South, Suite 6.
Old and South, Suite 6?
Yeah.
And how many employers are?
We have four besides me.
So there's 5 people at that location? Okay, and you mentioned before about the difficulty is getting drivers for this, for Lakewood School District. I've talked to several drivers that said that when they're assigned a route, the route time frame is relayed to them, and let's just hypothetically say the route takes an hour. But they say invariably it takes an hour and a half or sometimes 2 hours. But their pay is based on the time that was scheduled for the route. I don't know how the consortium zeroes in on how much time that route should take and what is fair and equitable, because the bus drivers, some of them at least, appear to be not satisfied that they can complete the route in the time allocated.
Okay, so for this year, the routes again, we're using the current Versatrans system, which calculates the amount of time from beginning to end. In our training, they have told us that with our version of Versatrans, we have to update the miles per hour on the actual highways and byways of Lakewood to ultimately probably reflect a better timing of the routes. That means the system calculates from point A to point B, the various streets and roads that it crosses, and different streets have different speed restrictions, and you, not to get too complicated, you give a certain amount of time for the actual stops, how long it takes to every stop and things of that nature. But I don't know about how the drivers or the vendors, how their pay actually works. If it's per hour or per route. As far as I understand, and I can't tell you for sure, I'm sure that it's by the hour, but I could check into that, absolutely.
I've been confused with, myself before. John McCross is my name, I'm glad to meet you. And I think you're doing a wonderful job in terms of your presentation. My question is, in respect to the efficiencies that you hope to achieve, if you were to bring the cost down of the 884 lower than that unit cost per child, what happens to the delta that? Are you going to be able, how do you use that money? Because my understanding is you get that 884 per child, whether in fact you spend it in those.
So in the bill, any money that's left over has to go back.
Oh, it does have to.
Yes, yes, that's in the bill.
Per year, per annum?
Yeah.
Hey, Peyton Guy, Asbury Park Press. So Tom mentioned earlier asking the township for more money, 1.6, 2.2. How much was it actually, and why?
Just to clarify, we haven't asked the township for anything. I believe as part of the bill,
So it was a deal between the state and the township.
I think the town is paying for the public school,
Courtesy of children going to
non-mandated
public.
But
children.
that's aside from this. What was
This
on
is,
the-
Okay.
nothing to do with those.
Correct.
I got one last question, and I've heard a few different answers, maybe you can answer it. In Muncie and in New York State, boys and girls ride together on the same bus by putting a curtain down the middle of the bus. I'm curious, the fact that in Lakewood, they separate boys and girls completely, never to ever ride on the same bus. Is that something that we're allowing it to be done, or is that part of the law?
So as far as I know, I actually just had this conversation with, I believe I had it with Gus this week. I believe that years ago, this was adjudicated in the courts, that as long as I don't have the case reference, it was a discussion this week, that as long as the school is solely one gender, that means the same school building is solely one gender, you are allowed to bus the kids separately, separate gender. But just to let you know that our buses are pretty much packed. They're full. We don't have many buses running around not on full. And we actually have a challenge that as kids move, certain routes, you have to move a kid from, let's say, Route 1 in the school to Route 3 in order to open up a space for Route 2 that passes by, that kid's area. But we're not running empty buses. That's number one. And number two, just I don't know the case, but I believe this was adjudicated in the courts that you give separate busing. In just in reference to Muncie, I believe they do that for religious reasons more than anything else. And it's not school bus.
Is it a law that it has to be done, or is this a courtesy that we extend to the busing in Lakewood? And I just want to say one other thing, and I'm telling you this, and I say it as declaratively as I possibly can. I have followed buses in the morning to schools that have dropped off 5 kids. And I've done it a number of times where I've seen buses that are going to school, so it's not a question of catching them at the end of their run. I've seen them go to school and drop off 5 kids, 8 kids, 10 kids. So I personally would have a problem going along with the fact that all buses are full all the time.
Okay.
And if you could possibly tell me the difference between, you say it's been adjudicated, that you can have boys and girls separate. What I'd like to know is what the law actually states. If a way to save, and I sat in a meeting with Rabbi Kotler and with Mayor Lichtenstein and with a whole bunch of other people, where Gus said that he could save $8 million right off the bat if boys and girls rode together. And as Mr. Hobday said, if boys and girls, all boys were commingled from different schools, but all boys, that now each school, demands their own separate bus. And if the open enrollment, where a child may live here and goes to school here, and pass 3 other schools that are the same exact, teaching the same exact course, that he could save $8 million right off the bat. And there didn't seem to be any law that said that the buses had to adhere to what they were doing. It seemed like, and I use the word courtesy, not in reference to kids, but it seems like a courtesy that the town is extending to the private school owners, and it seems like a tremendous amount of money could be saved if we just went along with what the law stated. And I'm asking you, because I don't know what the law actually states.
I couldn't answer definitively.
Okay.
Okay.
I can give you one glimpse. I don't know if the case has been adjudicated in New Jersey. I know in other states it does take place. We can also look to the guidelines. Now, the guidelines of the state tell us that public and private can be commingled. So I would assume boys and girls can be commingled. However, that's a question, Mr. Rush, for Mr. Forney. Is there a New Jersey case that mandates that boys and girls can be or must be separated in transportation? But the guidelines speak to allowing public and private even to be on the same bus for efficiency and cost savings.
And again, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. And again,
Yeah.
thank you all for doing the job that you're doing.
I have one further thing, if I may. I just want to make sure I introduce myself to you properly. My name is John McCarthy. I'm a member of the Senior Action Group. I'm on the board of directors of that group. Me and my constituents have put together a list of questions that I'd like to submit to you and ask that you look at them, because I believe they should be, if not, I would hope that they would be one of the same types of questions you would want answers to yourself. And again, some of my constituents and I have put that together for this meeting, but rather than spending all this time asking the questions where I think you don't have the answers to, I'd rather submit them to you in an email and have you respond back to us at the next meeting.
That is no problem. I'm sure the committee will go along with that, because that's what we're here for. And what we will do, each of us will have an email address, a Gmail account that we'll have, and you'll be able to recognize us. And as we finish this meeting, we'll make sure that you have that. And so when it goes to me, it will go to the rest of the committee. Because I don't want to receive anything unless it goes to the entire committee.
So after the meeting, I'll come and ask for you.
We can do that, certainly, and we will say to the public, and when we do a press release, we'll just say whatever we can do. We're oversight, and that's what we want to do, so we certainly need some answers and things from the community about concerns they have.
And my final comment is I'd like to thank the committee for allowing us to speak, number one, and two, for taking on this challenge that you have. I know that none of you are being paid for this, and I really appreciate it, especially since it's going to be a lot of catch-up for you, given the fact that LTSA has been operating and you're just coming into being. So I thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Dr. Rush, just a question as to, how do you intend to set up communications? Will you have space on the school district's website, or just email?
I'm sure we can have space on the district website. We're gonna discuss that as a group, because we gotta arrange for our meetings, for future meetings, so everybody will know, but I'm sure, and speaking to Michael Zara and the superintendent, we can have space we should have space on the website just for oversight, question and answers and concerns, and again, it will go to all of us at the same time, not a specific person. And that's what we would ask people to send it. When they send it to me, just don't send it to me as chair. Send it to the entire committee. So we as a group can work together for the purpose of why we're here.
Dr. Rush, I too am a member of SAG Inc., and as a group, we want to say if there's anything that we can do at all as an organization to help you all in this task that you've undertaken, we'd be more than happy to do it. And again, as John said, I applaud you for taking this on. Thank you very much for being here. And again, if we can help you in any way, please, by all means, let us know.
Thank you. And we thank you. Abraham, we thank you, Abraham, for taking the time. I thought 15, 20 minutes, but I'm glad you were able to answer some questions. And we will get to you in writing the information that we requested, and hopefully by our next meeting.
From our end, whatever is needed, we're more than glad to.
Any final questions of the director? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now, we're gonna go on, and our next area is we're gonna talk about the schedule of future meetings. Now, we had a discussion on this, and there's no reason for us to meet, and this committee felt, we don't need to meet every month. Okay, because meeting every month, I can't and don't wanna do it. Okay, and I think the committee decided, I think, Maya, you said, what did we say,
Actually, I wanted to ask him, around, we really based our meetings.
Should I come back up?
No, that's we like to schedule our meetings, but we need to have substance to discuss at the meeting. So it really depends on your financials, when things are, is it quarterly, you think we should meet, is it, every 2 months, like, before we meet, we would like to have an accounting of what was done. How do you pay the vendors? You pay vendors monthly?
So I'll just give you I'm gonna come back up soon, no, I'm kidding. We run monthly reports, that we do run presently, and that we've been, sending it to the monitor. We'll gladly send it to you.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I do think, you're talking about your next meeting, or I'm not telling you what to meet, or for future. I think that you should request what you need from us and give us some time to really put it all together in the easy format that gets you what you need,
Right.
and then ultimately whatever everybody feels.
You supply a report to David Schaffner at the present time.
Correct.
I would like the committee to receive.
I don't think we need to meet until we have more data.
Right.
We don't really have anything to really talk to the public about or for us to discuss. So until those questions are answered, that we're going to give Abraham and Mr. Forney and Mr. Azara, we probably don't really have a need to meet until we have better data to actually analyze.
Can I just give our next benchmark? Our next benchmark is we have to process every aid in lieu request, which means you got to take the kid's name, go into the mapping system, look at what buses they're on, and then in turn figure out when they started and things of that nature. We're about, like I said previously, usually they mail out the checks end of January, early, in previous years, early February. We're about probably 30 or 40% of all the forms processed, and we plan on doing this over the next 3 to 4 weeks to really complete. I think at that point, once we have the actual number of aid in lieu forms, the checks that we're going to be mailing back, that would also give a much clearer picture as to, besides being able to collect everything and send it in time, that would be able to give us a much clearer picture, give everybody here a much clearer picture, about what that is. We're probably about 4 or 5 weeks away from finishing the forms, and if I stopped everything that we're doing to do the forms, then I couldn't service the day-to-day.
No, your first job is to service the kids.
Right.
I would recommend, if I can, that you will send the same report you're sending to David Schaffner, to the Dr. Rush monthly.
We'll send it for this month,
Right.
absolutely.
Not to all of us, you send to Dr. Aki, the chair of the committee. Okay, and once in 3 months, we can meet and summarize and go through all of this.
That's fine. That's fine.
May I suggest that any documents or reports that were turned over to Mr. Zara in the past should also be available to you at this time. So you can track from the beginning what was said, what was reported, et cetera.
If I could make a suggestion, you're brand new, you're just coming up to the curve, and as Belinda said, you don't have any data, so there's real no purpose to run quickly and have another meeting. And I agree with that. And then this gentleman, Mr. Efron, I think.
I'm wrong. Anything's wrong.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Has a lot of work to do as well. If I could propose a date of early March, and the reason I say that is because of all the circumstances, but if you don't get your arms around this thing pretty quickly, the next budget cycle is gonna be up, and you're not gonna have any influence over how that budget is put together.
Right, well, what we talked about in our last meeting, we talked about quarterly meetings. And then if there's a need for a meeting, we can do that. So rather than, what I was gonna propose is mid-March, a meeting in mid-March sometimes. You know, that way give you time to do, and we have reports. And then the next meeting, the reason we do this because it costs to advertise. So instead of us calling the newspaper or trying to put a form in every time to save the district money, we can advertise the next 4 or 5 meetings. Now, if there's a change, we can change it. But if we say mid-March or March 15th, whatever that day is, newspapers will have that.
Just don't make it March 17th, please, Doctor.
No, we won't. We won't make it March 15th either, because the eyes of March, we don't want to do that. But that's what we're gonna do, we're gonna schedule that, and we will make sure that the time frame will say and give you time to do what you need to do. So we're talking about mid-March, we just look at a date, before we leave today, mid-March, April, May, and then we meet June sometimes, okay? And then June, July, August. So we'll have quarterly meetings, and if there's a need for a special meeting, I'll contact the committee and say we need to meet because there's an issue we need to discuss. And then we'll have a single item, so we wanted to sit here for 2 hours just talking. If there's a single item on the agenda that we need to talk about, and it may take a half hour, 45 minutes, we'll do that as well. Okay?
Another thing I would ask Dr. Ash, if you contact Mr. Fernie and Mr. Michael Lazara and make sure they answer the question that was brought by Tom Gotti about laws by state of New Jersey, what's the law, what procedure of transporting kids.
Okay.
Okay, I would like to have this in order to people to have information.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so if we look at our calendars right quick, and a day in mid-March, March 10th or whatever, Friday's probably not the best day, by the way. But we needed to have this meeting, and I know for you guys it's not the best day. But probably on a Wednesday or Thursday, or mid-March, if you can come up with a date, we can say,
We also can meet when we have Board of Education meeting, maybe before, 1 hour before or 2 hours before, the same day, because a lot of people come for the Board of Education meeting, it's a public meeting, we can meet at the same time.
we can do that too.
That would be a safe time for everybody else who was attend to meeting.
When is your board meeting in March?
Just not posted yet.
I don't have
Posted on the website.
Usually usually Wednesdays.
February is posted, but there's nothing posted for the rest of the year.
Right, we're gonna have it.
It was on the agenda for,
Yeah, it's on the board.
it's on the board agenda.
Okay, well, we'll look at that, and we can schedule it, you know,
This
an hour
way-
before the board meeting, because we'll be there, and
Right, plus if you would have a chance to talk to many people to clear some questions that you have at the same time.
March 15th, actually.
oh, wow, March 15th, that's it's a board meeting. The eyes of March, I mean, I can do it, I'm not, you know, so March 15th, is that a Wednesday?
It's Wednesday.
Yes.
Why don't we say March 15th, board meetings at what time?
Board meeting 6:30, so if we meet like 5:30, 5 o'clock, that would be great.
Why don't we say 5 o'clock?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, March 15th.
And then the board meeting in June?
21st.
That's
It's a Wednesday.
No, I can't do that, that's my anniversary. Can't do the 21st.
So whatever is available. I mean, we can talk next meeting, we can schedule,
Right,
March 15, we can schedule next meeting.
Exactly, we'll do that. Okay, old business we talked about, that's the reports that we're gonna ask for Mike and for Glenn, just an update on everything. Anybody got any, Tom, anybody has anything for old business? Al?
No, no old business.
Okay, any new business? Okay, comment, right, those, right.
I think ask that you speak to Mr. Forney and ask if there are some boilerplate bylaws or bylaws that we can look at. Much easier to start a product than to create a brand new product.
Right. Okay, we can do that. The last thing on the new business, we make sure we have Gmail accounts for each committee. So if you could get that to Kim, and then we'll create it on the website, the district website, so we can begin to do what we have to do in terms of business and making sure that we are a viable committee. What I don't want us to be is be a name only. So as you're making a difference in the lives of kids, we want to do that to oversee what you guys are doing. So we want to do the same thing, okay?
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, with that, any public comments? Any other public comments? Thank you, appreciate you being here, appreciate the newspapers being here. You're from this,
First Amendment activist.
pardon me?
He's a good guy.
He's a First Amendment activist.
He's good.
Activist.
He
I
does a lot of
think, we
things.
met before, so I know he's a good guy. Will that be, this will be on YouTube or something? Yes, hey, Al, thank you, man. Okay, we'll be in touch, all right? Can we try to write things up and we get information out to where, if you got any other comments, we're gonna have our email address, you can send them, all right? Thank you.
Okay, meeting adjourned?
Meeting adjourned.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Thank you.